how are you doing? It's Thursday, I believe it is Thursday, and we are going back to work. Let's get straight into it, shall we? Where are we going? We are going to Shepperton, and I think coincidentally that was the last video we'd done, I think, was Shepperton. I can't quite remember, but I know it's next door. It's the next door neighbour wants a garden wall done, so that is what we are doing today. We are going to be putting OCR one coat render on a small decorative garden wall, and yeah, I've had a video of it. I did see it a while ago, and I was there to say, but you know, a lot's happened since I was last doing a video. Got married and everything, so bear with me. Right, let's get there, see what's going on, shall we? Okay, so here we are. We've got this little retaining wall, this little garden wall here that needs to be done. So yeah, not a particularly large job. That's a nice one to ease myself back into the idea of working for a living. So we'll see what we've got going on here. Look, we've got this Cordex down to protect these tiles that are already down, although they haven't been grouted. And here we have a drainage system, so we've taken the time to mask it up so we don't get any material down there which runs all the way down here, and we've got to come up these steps, etc., and just make a nice job of it. Now I'll show you the products we're using at the moment. Well, first things first, we need to get these beads up, and we're using 6mm plastic beads. Okay, now what's going to happen is they're going to have some sort of coping stones going on the top here. Okay, so what we're doing, we're putting the beads up, kind of leveling them off, and then the coping stones are going to be able to rest directly on top of these. We're not going to be doing the insides, which is going to allow him to get any adhesive that he needs, okay, in that little area, and then you won't have the coping stones lifting up away from the render. I mean, sometimes it's easy to have the coping stones on already, then you can come up to them, but in this case that hasn't happened. So this is why we're taking the time to bead it up so they can get a nice tight line with the edge of their coping stones, which are just going to bleed over slightly. Okay, and so we're going to put a bead on this side, bead on this side, and create a little trough there, and the adhesive that keeps the coping stones on has got somewhere to go. So I've been speaking with the customer, and for ease and convenience and cheapness, what we have agreed on is to use this product here. I normally use the Weber one because that's what's available at Wix, but I go somewhere else now because getting hold of the plastic beads can be quite troublesome. You might need to go more to a dedicated plastering shop to get them, as they don't stock the plastic beads in Wix or anything like that, or in your general DIY place. So you can see it says on the bag there, it's a one coat render system, which behaves very much like sand and cement. That's pretty much what it is. But the reason we get to use this stuff is because it's a lot easier to work with than sand and cement, and much more convenient in the sense that you can just have it in a bag. It's ready, you know, it's the bag, you put some water in it, you mix it up with your mixer, ready to rock and roll. If we're using sand and cement and stuff like that, we need to mix it up in a slightly different way, more additives and stuff like that, and you probably won't be able to get the scratch coat and the top coat on in the same day, because that is what we are going to do. We're going to get this done today. Okay, although I did say you don't need any additives for this particular product, these OCRs, but we are going to add a little bit of this because it is an outside sort of like retaining wall, so it is going to be subject to a lot of moisture, but this is going to say that it's water repellent, you know, and we're going to hang on that word repellent. It repels water, okay, but you know, it might be succumbing to damage after a certain period. So in the scratch coat, we're going to be using and adding a little bit of this to the water for the first coat, which is SBR, and it's an admixture. It can be used as a primer, and this is it reduces shrinkage, which is handy because that's what we don't want going on if we're going to be scratching and top coating in the same day. What else does it say? Improves bonding flexibility, aids chemical and water resistance. Oh, it's resistant as well. Reduces cracks and surface dust. So we're going to put a little bit of splash of that in with the scratch coat. Another thing to add, you don't need much water. Well, I've only got a little bit in there because we're going to be knocking some up quite stiff so that we're able to stick those beads up. But yeah, I'm going to be adding a little splash of that to this mixture and to the first coat. There we go, we don't need much at all. Good little splash there, that should be plenty. It's pretty potent stuff. So there you go, as you can see we've got a nice body to it, you know, it's quite stiff, so it holds those beads together quite nicely. And you might find this stuff being left in the bucket, it does seem to stiffen up quite quickly all by itself. But all you need to do is just give it a little spin round and it will liven back up again. Okay, as you can see, we've got some beads going on now. The brickwork is pretty good, to be honest with you, and we've just rested these on there for now. Okay, so you can see on the corners here, we need to trim them at an angle so that these bits don't really overflap and we can get it all nice and in line. So we've got this area kind of lining up, and I tend not to use tape measures if I can help it, because I just find it's, you know, got more chance of being a little bit more inaccurate. So here, where we've got this line coming on here, because I'm overhung it, look, I can see where it needs to go with my snips, and I'll just trim that. I'm not going to, because I need two hands to do it, and then I can be much more accurate, I find, by holding it up and just looking at it rather than trying to measure it and maybe, you know, having a bit of a discrepancy because you've measured it slightly different. And yeah, it's just, I find it easier just to hold it up and trim it in situ. So there we go, here's my regular old snips, trim that off like so. And then when we come to do this side, we can hold the back there, and again with our snips see exactly where that needs to be cut. So there we go, we're looking pretty good on every single angle there, all the way around. So what I'm going to probably do is carry on doing all this all the way along here as well, and then I'm going to get them stuck up, and then I'm going to start addressing the uprights that are going to need beading as well. I've only got a couple, there's 3, yeah, 4 around there. Okay, along this stretch here, we need to put a joint in, and because these are 2.4 and this is obviously longer than 2.4, so we've got one of our offcuts. So I've trimmed this edge, and you don't have to worry about cutting it back so much because it's the internal angle. But what I have done is keep the factory cuts, okay, because when you do cut them, look, it does have a tendency to warp the actual bit of bead a little bit, which isn't so bad on the actual corners. But when it comes to a straight like this, you're better off using the machine factory cut edges and put them together. Alternatively, instead of using these snips, you can use a little grinder and grind them, and you'll get a much cleaner cut. So there we go, we've got everything not stuck but cut and ready to be stuck, and we've got one bead left over. So that's a pretty good guess about how many beads I wanted because I just guessed it from the video, and yeah, I think I'm much happier having one bead too many rather than one bead not enough. So let that be an indication of how things are going to go today. So when I am putting beads up in such fashion, I tend to load up the whole corner. I find it makes things much easier. So all we do at this point is get our bead and put it on. Don't stick it on too quick, too hard, and you'll probably do well with having a decent sized spirit level to help you out with this as well. So when you are loading up the corner with the material, you'll probably want to guess it so that you're just enough for it to start bleeding out the holes, okay, as you push it on and get it in position. And then afterwards you can just take a trowel and just smooth that back. Bead stuck. Okay, so here we go, we've just mixed up to put the first coat on, which is known as the scratch coat, okay? And you see it's not quite as stiff as what we had it for putting up the beads, so it works as much easier to maneuver and spread on the surface. Okay, so as you can see, we have applied a coat of OCR to the surface. Now, to put the key in there, we need something like this. Now, this is a tool which is specific to scratching, and all we do there is hold it flat, and we just run it across and create these little key areas. Maybe put a little bit of a wiggle in there as well. Now, you can see what it is. If you haven't got one, and they are a little bit hard to come by, then you could have a little bit of bead or something, and you know, you could trim it down to suit, and you could drab a little bit of bead across there, or you could use a devil float or something. But you know, that is what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, it's quite important to note as well, see, we stayed a little bit shy of the bead here. Okay, so on the next pass we're going to be coming out to this line here, because we need enough depth over that bead for the top coat to be able to hold itself. Okay, so we're all scratched in. And there's not much we can do now. We just need this to pull together, start stiffening up and holding itself together. You can see it's still quite wet, so we need it firm right up. Okay, so whilst that is doing its thing and starting to set and holding itself together, it's a good opportunity for a cup of tea and a sandwich. Now, you probably noticed that when we started this video, there was a bit of a combination of materials, different blocks and bricks there. There was a few sort of house bricks, there was some engineered bricks in it, and there's concrete blocks which had been laid on their side. On the inside, they'd laid a plastic membrane to try and reduce that amount of water coming through, but yeah, it is, you know, going to be subject to quite a little bit of water in its lifetime. So, you could argue, why didn't we prime up the surface? It's basically because I don't want to kill the suction. I guess you could possibly put some accelerator in that stuff. I'm not sure how it works with it. It's a bit of a experimental thing, and I'd rather do it on my own place rather than experiment on somebody else's house. So we are using the suction which already exists in those blocks, which is why I took the time to put some SBR in that first coat, in that scratch coat. So give a little bit more water resilience, and a little bit more strength, a little bit more flexibility, all the things it suggests it does, to a product which already has all those properties. So we're just doubling up on that because of the location it is. It's retaining wall. It's going to be subject to moisture, cold conditions, etc, etc. It's not so bad if you're going on the side of a house. It tends not to freeze so much down onto a cavity sort of thing in, plus of course the house, the heating and the house warms up and everything, and you're above the damp course, whereas we've got none of that going on there. So that is why we didn't treat the bricks, because I want the suction to draw the moisture out of that scratch coat and just help it go off a little bit faster, which is going to give us a much better chance of it picking up, and we can get on with a second coat before the day is out. So the second coat is on, still quite wet. I believe we're going to need to let this pick up a little bit before we can do anything else to it. Okay, being such a small area, and I've chosen this little patch here because the sun's on it, so it's really showing up any discrepancies. So from this stage here, what we are going to do is apply a little bit of water, and because I'm doing it in one hand, I'm just doing it with my brush here, just to loosen up that surface. And then we're going to take one of these things, which is a sponge float. Okay, now this one's a little bit denser than a lot of other ones, and it's not so, I tend to use these ones for multi-finish, but the result is going to be the same. And all we're going to do is just liven up that surface, bringing up this sort of detail, and what it's doing is filling any holes, buffing out any ripples, and getting us ready for the next stage that we're going to do very shortly. Okay, so here we go. Look, we've got the sun really casting shadows, showing up the tiniest imperfections in this. Now, I've just taken that from this condition to that condition. So this is what we did with the sponge float, and then when it picks up a little bit and I'm having to like move around where the sun is, just take a normal car sponge and just gently, again, liven up the very surface. It doesn't liven up, it doesn't go as deep as the sponge float. Might be on this a little bit early, but you know, you can go over it twice, it's not an issue. But we just bring up the grain to the surface, and it generally makes things quite flat. That's what we're going to do to the rest of all this. Okay, so the little issue we got here is where the sun's hitting it, it's sending it off faster. So these bits went straight down, but this has hardly had any sun on it whatsoever. So the sponge isn't working quite so well, the hand cast sponge, but if you can see with a dry sponge float, we're pretty much creating the same effect, but this is going off under its own steam much more. So yeah, even though we put it on in a regulated way, it's actually not going off in the way that we put it on. So that's one of the things you might want to watch out for when you're doing something like this. So there we go. See this area where the sun is baking, it's starting to dry already. And this side is still quite damp. But I'm quite pleased about the fact what made this particularly awkward. I mean, this patio is yet to be grouted in, so it was very difficult with this track running down here. So I'm going to assume he's going to run some grout in here. I'll just mark that now. But yeah, we needed to tape that up so that didn't get filled full of wet gear. And as you can see, look, it's actually very, very clean in there. So I mean, that was the thing we had to really watch out for on that one. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with it. It's all looking pretty good, and we've cleaned the patio, and we can start making the move and see what the traffic's like on the way home. Alright guys, thanks for watching that video. We are just getting back into the swing of things. I'm having a little bit of a technical issue with the Wi-Fi being down at the moment, and hopefully somebody is going to come and fix that for us tomorrow. Alternatively, come over to the Facebook group Plastering 74 if you want to chat to us about anything, or you want to give us some advice or get some advice. There's a group there, Plastering 74. It's full of nice guys that want to help you out, who are involved with plastering as well. So yeah guys, thanks for watching, and this is just a little one that's up now, and I'm gonna edit another one now. It's Friday evening. Right, take it easy, thanks.